Drink Tank.
It's showtime.
Well, hey everybody. Welcome to an episode of Drink Tank.
Hey, it's Drink Tank.
Hey, we're back.
Drink and we're tanked.
We're kind of already are, yeah.
And we talk.
So we just got done.
We.
Two of us.
Oh, you're right.
Just
It
the
was
two
weird.
of us. We went on a very bromantic date to see Beetlejuice.
true.
Beetlejuice.
At 10:45 in the morning.
Yep.
It was the right time to start drinking.
It was pretty crowded for 10:45 in the morning. Not gonna
right.
lie. So I figure we will start a little spoiler free. I'll start with a very simple question. Would you recommend this movie? Yes, no?
The time to see this movie is now in the theaters because if it's anything, it's an experience. If you see this just at home, you're gonna be underwhelmed. You're gonna be like, why did this happen? I'm only gonna think fondly of this movie at all because I schlepped out to the theater and it was kind of a nice morning thing and it was nice to see Michael Keaton back. So if I recommend seeing it, see it with the hype, feel good about it, drinking the nostalgia because the movie itself doesn't hold up that much.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think there are some moments where I laughed in the theater where I could tell the rest of the theater was not enjoying the joke as much as I was.
That happens a lot.
So like a simple version of that, yeah, that does happen a lot. But like a simple version of it, which I thought was hilarious, is this one woman who's a realtor said for Halloween she was going as a reverse mortgage, and her shirt just said mortgage in reverse. And he and I are dying laughing.
Great joke.
Crickets from everyone else.
That is such a Ghostbusters 2016
It's
joke
just
that
such
makes
like a
me laugh
pun.
and nobody else.
I loved it. Like there was like a couple like cheap jokes like that I absolutely adored.
It's very Burton-esque.
Yes, it was. Those things really landed. So to say the movie's like totally without humor or fun would be a lie. But is there a preponderance of humor? No. Is there a preponderance of fun? Not really. So do I recommend it? I'm leaning towards not really. It's an unnecessary sequel. If you like the first one, just
Definitely.
watch the first one again.
It is unnecessary. I
Yeah.
concur with that, and that is kind of what was baked into mine. So that's what I'm saying. If you're not going to jump onto the hype train and kind of drink it
Yeah.
in at the beginning, if you're coming into it late, you're definitely going to be like, what was this?
Yeah.
If you see this in November.
Yeah, it's definitely an opening weekend kind of like before other people can start talking about
Yeah.
it. People like us.
Yes.
So I don't really recommend it. I think there's probably better ways to spend your time and money.
Well, high level, I think Keaton's performance is good.
Yeah, let's talk some pros before we jump into
Ryder
cons.
is great. Catherine O'Hara is great. So they bring a lot of people back. I think Catherine O'Hara especially grows as a character in a good way that we might remember to talk about later. Who knows? I don't know if we'll remember.
Without getting into like
See,
too
we
much
can't
detail.
spoil her
yeah.
yet, so that's what I'm saying. High
She's
level.
very much. If you liked her in
Jenna
Schitt's Creek,
Ortega is good. I think there's some good ideas that were here, but there's also some bad ideas that should have been left on the floor that they forgot to bake out of the recipe earlier.
yeah, 100%, man. So I agree with you. I think acting-wise, I really had no issues with it. Michael Keaton did a great job
He's
again.
a little bit lower energy than I'd expect. I'd expect Keaton coming back to this role 30 years later is cranked up higher than what we saw in the 90s is what I expected. And I'd say
Late
he
80s,
is
yeah.
more mindful and more demure now.
I think, yeah, there was some parts of it that when we get into spoilers, we'll discuss that when we were thinking about it, it's like, well,
Pre-spoiler time. I hate it.
well, it's just, just in case, just in case anybody's curious, they haven't had a chance to see it. This will be out before a lot of people probably had a chance to see it. And, I repeated myself like Beetlejuice. Thank you. They get the count wrong, in case you're wondering. They get their counts on Beetlejuice wrong, so minor spoiler, I suppose. But if you're going to go into it, you're probably counting the Beetlejuices like I was.
I never know what the rule is. You might have to
Yeah,
say
it's-
them in some sort of concurrence.
I think it has to be. In the first movie, they establish a little bit of a time, like it has to be like within a set amount of time.
Yeah.
But even given the time limit, and they're never clear if it is only one person or if it's like any number of people can all say it at the same time.
Yeah, in like one room.
Right, because that's left intentionally vague, and so I give it somewhat of a pass, but I don't really buy it. Like if you're having a conversation, we can't say the name, that implies that anybody who says it counts. Right? So, yeah. And you know what? There's really no other way to do it, so let's get into spoilers, I suppose. I mean, you've been warned.
Beetlejuice is dead the whole time.
Whoa.
It's true.
It is true. It is technically true.
Which is the best kind of true.
Technically true. So in terms of things that like I had a kind of an issue with, I don't want to do like a play-by-play here. I don't want to recap the entire plot of the movie.
When Beetlejuice came into the ring and swung the steel chair, my God!
Who's not supposed to be here?
So the plot of it is Wynonna Rider's back. She's Lydia Dietz again, but she's all grown up. But she is still basically Lydia Dietz. So
Yeah,
she
like
dresses
cosmetically.
right. She runs a psychic TV show, which is kind of Bill Murray a la Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah.
It's got that vibe kind of thing.
Monetizing her gift.
Right.
But in a cheesy way.
Yeah. Although it would seem like she would be capitalizing on her fame, as, like a la what fame she got from the first Beetlejuice incident, but like that wasn't really publicized what happened.
No, they don't really talk about it too much, and it's kind of, you would think like when Robert Goulet's character goes missing in Beetlejuice, like there would be some notoriety to it because like billionaire man disappears visiting, you know, what was it, Winter Haven, Connecticut.
Yeah.
So, but like those are the things you can ignore in the first movie. You can kind of ignore it. It's been enough time here. Though she does mention, is that Maxie? It's like no, because Robert Goulet's dead.
Yeah.
So lots of people that are dead.
A lot of the people in this movie are already dead. Spoilers.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's got gifts and powers, and she's got a daughter who is estranged because she does not believe that her mother has gifts and powers.
Right.
So this seems like a great start to the movie to me. And good casting. Jenna Ortega is obviously her daughter. If it's not too on the nose, it is a little too on the nose, but Jenna Ortega, she's so hot right now. You got to put her in the movie. So hot right now.
Wednesday Addams.
Yeah.
Also
She's
a Tim Burton production.
pretty much doing the
I
Wednesday
assume that's what Tim
Addams
Burton
skin
sounds
there.
like. I know that's what Dave Filoni sounds
And
like.
was in Scream. So
Yeah.
Ortega is, you know, there for it. And so they're estranged, and a lot of their relationship is that the father of the daughter is out of the picture because not only were they divorced, but then he dies.
Yep.
And the psychic mother who can communicate with the dead can't talk to the father.
The deceased father. It's been
Right.
It's implied it's been quite some time now.
And it's
too.
like, and of course, logically, Jenna Ortega's a smart girl. She's grown up, and she's like, my mother's full of
I
shit.
believe in science.
Why shouldn't she be? Because Lydia Dietz thought her mother Delia was full of shit in the first movie. So we
Stepmother,
get
yeah.
it. We're creating the same kind of thing. It was Stepmother. It's been a while since I've seen the first one.
okay.
But that's still a mother. Derek, how dare you? Stepmother erasure.
Well, they have a strained relationship in it, which they make a joke about in the second one, in this one about like, we're so much closer now. And it's like, yes, once I started to make money, you really said, she's like, I liked you before you made money.
So, all right. So she's divorced. She's not really widowed because he died because they were already divorced. And she's estranged from her daughter who doesn't really talk to her. And now her dad dies. So
Yep.
Charles, who was Jeffrey Jones in the first movie,
Yep.
he dies. He gets bitten in half by a shark. Which
in a
is,
claymation
they
sequence,
do
which
a
I liked.
funny claymation sequence. It's interesting that they did it. I don't even know if we had to see it because when they tell us the shark bit him in half,
Right.
when he shows up later bitten in half, we
can
get
puzzle it out.
But here's it's clear that he is written out of this movie so that we don't have to pay Jeffrey Jones anything. But his portrait appears on his tombstone, which is shark fin shaped. Very funny. I didn't notice it till the second showing. But why is his portrait there? It's still clearly Jeffrey Jones there in the portrait, which means do you have? That's his likeness. You may have to pay him.
Maybe it was taken from a frame of the first movie and it's baked into the.
But we don't have to show him at all.
No, we
Most
don't have to show him at
tombstones
all.
don't have a portrait of the deceased, so
Mine won't.
you won't have a tombstone unless it's a pizza.
They'll just play footage of the newsreel from my murder suicide. Tombstone pepperoni on my tombstone. I love it. So I got bad news for you how this video ends. So
Keep the murder suicide spoiler in your hat for now. So her dad's dead, which kind of brings the estranged daughter back into the picture.
Right.
Delia Dietz kind of comes back into the picture with her daughter. They're closer now that they're older.
Yes, now that they're older.
And apparently now the stage is set for Beetlejuice to be able to return.
We don't know if Beetlejuice is actually haunting her or if she's just having like visions of it brought on by stress.
She starts seeing
She
him
starts
a little
seeing
bit
him all
more.
over the place. Well, that you actually know because they do that part with the cell phone where it's like the Beetlejuice ads
Yes.
show up and it's implied that he's at
He's
that
got
point
more power,
yeah.
but even at that point, Jenna Ortega had said the name twice.
Yeah, and then I mean, like the fly. I guess like his powers are kind of nebulous. Like in both movies, he gets to send the flyer to the real world.
Right.
It's small things. They're not big things. They're like visions. And he does that also in the first one where he tries to get Lydia to say Beetlejuice.
But there's been 30 years
appear.
between this where the movie tells us nothing happened. Right? She says he'd gone away.
Yeah. Which doesn't make a lot of sense because he has a picture of her on his desk. You think he would be taking every opportunity.
Right, and he sends it now's the time, because he looks and he finds out that Charles's death, he says, now's the time. Now, this is a woman we know who's lost an ex-husband, sure, but a father.
I don't know
if
they ever say they were divorced. I know
they're separated. That is implied. He moved to Brazil. They're separated.
Yeah.
I would say it's implied they're divorced. They're so metropolitan. I think she would have divorced, not just separated.
Probably.
and
Protect her assets on the show.
Movie, I gotta tell you why Beetlejuice would not try to strike while her ex-husband had died. Seems like a great window of opportunity, as great as Charles dying.
Better than the death of her father.
Right.
Yeah.
At least as good as that.
No.
Following up on this, she also has a boyfriend who's turning fiance, who is essentially the also parallel.
Otho, yeah.
Otho, sorry.
But without, like, Otho had no romantic interest. He was just kind of a
true.
scumbag.
They've managed to tie her in, but he's new agey in a way that is false.
Exactly, yeah.
Falsely new agey.
And he's just trying to be with her for her money, and everybody knows it except
Otho was
her.
clearly using Catherine O'Hara
Yes, he was constantly... Yeah, Mauve, you were in my brain.
Right.
Was I? You know, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. It's super transparent. Even that he is just
it's funny because Catherine O'Hara is like, no, this is not legitimate. You should listen to me on this.
Catherine O'Hara has great growth from the last one, and I don't think it's just because her daughter is rich. I think there is something about aging, and I think you would especially understand that parents are different when you're a child to when you're an adult. They suddenly become much chiller, and you can hang out with them, and that's where Delia Dietz is. She can be hung out with. She can be talked to.
She's also achieved her dreams, too. There's another thing. She's not struggling for anything more.
Right.
She's achieved her station.
Yes.
So she may be more relaxed in that regard.
Yes.
And she does come across
she's
much
still
more
ruthlessly
maternal.
ambitious.
She does come across much more maternal in this one, which I think is a right play.
I think it's a great maturity of Delia, and I think if this movie has a strength, one of its best strengths is Catherine O'Hara, period.
Yeah.
And the writing of what happens with Delia Dietz, I think, is great in this movie.
Yeah, it's very appropriate.
And well performed, and so she's back in the picture.
Yep.
So, side of all this, seemingly related to nothing.
This is the worst part of this
Monica Bellucci
movie.
appears
Worst part of the
as...
movie.
It's hard for me because I love when she showed up, because she shows up killing Danny DeVito in a cameo.
It was all right.
Which we liked until it was very painfully Danny DeVito.
Yeah,
like, it was nice
great when it's
subtle.
behind his back and he just says, like, go down the hall.
Yeah, and it's like, hey, Batman returns. All right, Burton and DeVito are back together again.
That's all you needed to do.
Right.
Simple.
But he gets his role becomes bigger.
Yeah.
And but I love Bellucci's Bellucci,
until it becomes much shorter.
She's not Bellucci, but Bellucci.
Bellucci.
She starts stapling herself together, and that's cool. That's Corpse Bride. It's very
I don't like it.
Before Christmas.
I don't mind it, but I don't like it in particular because it is just a character based off that one gag at the end of Beetlejuice where he pulls out the ring on the one finger and he's like, "Oh, she meant nothing to me, babe. I promise." So they built a whole character around the missing finger, which she somehow gets, and it would have been better if she was still missing that finger and she's going to find Beetlejuice. It's like, give me back my finger, give me back my ring.
So she can be whole.
I need to be whole. Right. Much better than just simple, like...
Great motivation for her. She shouldn't... Because she's in a bunch of boxes, so not only did Beetlejuice kill her, I would say it's implied he
chopped
put her
up
in several different... He definitely chopped her up. Before he dies of poison. It's a bad flashback. I probably didn't want a Beetlejuice origin story mixed in there, but the fact that it's in Italian and black and white, I liked that.
It's stylish, but it's only style. There's no substance.
But it is some style.
All sizzle, no steak.
And Monica still looks great, keeping it tight the whole time.
That's confusing too, because then she doesn't go to the afterworld in boxes. So somehow when he gets to the afterlife, he has to put her in the boxes and then hide her.
Right.
Like, it doesn't make a lot of narrative sense.
What's that story? What was keeping her locked?
Yeah. Somebody would have had to agree to do that. Exactly. And like nobody, it's a mess and we don't need it. And we especially don't need it because that storyline goes nowhere.
We'll probably talk about it ultimately.
We can talk about it now. We don't have to go in order.
Well, the thing is, the movie just sort of drops it. She puts herself back together, kills Danny DeVito, then she kills a dry cleaner, takes her wedding
An
dress
Asian
back.
dry cleaner, by the way.
It was.
Stereotypes.
It sure was that thing, but at least he didn't say no ticky or anything, so I held my breath for that. But he says something real close, like "Go waiting room." It's not great. But she kills him, and then she basically disappears until they remember her in the final act, which is why I won't touch it, because I don't know if we want to necessarily go all the way to the ending.
Okay, no, but to say that they forget her until the finale,
they basically forget her until the finale.
She gets like one scene, but they don't. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't progress anything. We don't learn any new information.
Right. Other than that, Beetlejuice had an ex-wife,
which we already knew.
Felt to me in the theater like a good out to save later in your pocket, but we'll flash forward to that.
Yeah.
So, all right, Charles is dead. The family is having a funeral for Charles, so they have to go back to Delia and Charles' house, which apparently is sort of sparsely occupied because Delia is clearly working in New York. I assume maybe Charles stays there part of the time.
She probably comes back for the weekends or something, or she's in the. It's weird because he went there because he had like a nervous breakdown in Beetlejuice 1 and he just wanted to be in the countryside. It's implied they don't spend a lot of time together anyway, which is fine.
The relationship seems very passionate based on this.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, but like didn't mean they had to spend all their time together. You know, so the issue I have almost like cosmetically with the house though is it doesn't have any of those weird new age things she put in Beetlejuice 1, like that one, like they put out like the outside wall for like their patio and like the beams running through it. I can understand that they would have got rid of it, but I would have liked to have seen it just as like a tacky reminder and her to be like, what was I thinking? Just like something like that.
Well, she still has her spider sculptures outside, and we see some at Jenna Ortega's school.
She has that art program at the school.
Right.
But I was a little bummed that they didn't stick with like the wacky design or like make it somehow even more wacky on the outside, that it went back to the default model.
But she's become this thing about living installations and stuff like that, which is very, postmodern.
Like I said, small thing. I just thought it would have been funny to see if there was a new twist on the house from the first one.
It would be cool to see old pictures of it and she was like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
And it's her in some ridiculous dress, and she's still in a ridiculous dress now, but it's a different ridiculous
dress. It's like just like a color swapped dress.
Yes,
like, what was I thinking? Mauve.
That would be brilliant. What was I thinking? I look ridiculous.
Yeah, small things like
Stripes.
that for it. As they're doing Charles' funeral, the scumbag boyfriend decides to propose to Lydia. They want to get married on her favorite holiday, Halloween.
Which is 2 days away.
2 days away. Also revealed to be the dead father's favorite holiday. And up until his passing, Jenna Ortega's favorite holiday. We get it. You're spooky.
Everyone likes Halloween.
Everybody likes
Halloween. Don't you?
Well, I like it aesthetically for sure.
The skimpy costumes.
I got it.
Okay.
All right. That's why I wear them for you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, so they're back in town. Yes, there is a proposal. So now Wynonna Rider finds herself in another wedding that she doesn't want to be in.
Yeah.
Kind of. Kind of, because she says yes.
Yeah, and she
doesn't have to.
She kind of gets like forced into it, and she's
a little guilted into it because seemingly she does like this guy. She doesn't seem to pick up that he is the scumbag we all know he is. That he is the another Otho.
Yeah,
we know that. She didn't see the first movie because she's in it. So
she says yes. Jenna Ortega gets mad, takes off on a bike, and starts riding through the main streets of Winter Haven.
Which this was a weird thing with lots of drone shots where it's like you're really into. I think it's called Winter River or something.
Winter River, yes.
Yeah, where you're really into this town, and I didn't understand why. And then suddenly it looks like Jenna Ortega's gonna die.
Yeah, they do like the three beats.
The truck almost hits her. The car almost hits her.
So the car almost backs into her. Fire truck almost hits her. And then going at 5 miles an hour.
On a bike.
Destroys a fence. Explodes this thing like you would not believe.
Wham, right through a fence.
Oh my God. Incredible Hulk was probably like, good form. And then,
the bike's not a Hulk death.
slams into a tree, like pretty hard.
Yeah.
Right. And this gets the attention of a boy up in the treehouse.
It's a treehouse, and this boy is up there reading Dostoevsky, and he comes down, and he's our love interest for Jenna Ortega now.
Yep.
Now, as soon as this dude walked out, we went, he's a ghost.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it was so obvious that I kept leaning over to him like, yes, but what if? Yes, but what if? Because it's like, it can't just be the obvious. It can't just be the obvious. Who would do that?
Because one of his first lines is like, "Oh, well, your parents care," and he's like, and he sort of is like, "I don't think they'll care," and it's like, "Oh, well, that's because they're dead, right?
Yeah.
They're dead, and probably you're dead," and I'm just like, "He's dead," and okay, let's get the shoe to drop.
Yeah,
and the movie
that,
kind
that
of,
coy line, oh, you don't believe in ghosts?
yeah.
You best start believing in ghost stories.
You better.
You're in one.
Now, and ultimately the reveal is after she gets to come into the house and we don't get to see the parents' face, they're purposely obscured to us from behind. It's like, well, you won't cherish the parents' face because they're dead.
It's
you already
terribly
did this
cheap.
reveal with Danny DeVito earlier in the movie, where you only showed the back of his head and then
Terribly
he turns
cheap.
around and he's dead.
Terribly cheap.
So they do it again, and yes, it turns out that this boyfriend is dead.
But wait, there's more.
And he's not nice. He killed the two parents and then fell out of the treehouse. We knew he fell out of the treehouse. The treehouse is like 10 feet tall.
Also, you got to see those rickety steps. Like, even on his way down, I'm like, ooh.
Well, then one of the steps should have been gone or should have broken.
I agree
thought
with you.
when he was stepping down, I went, one of those is going to break, but it never did. And that would have been, it's been falling apart for a while. Stuff like that are, there's at least a fun kind of breadcrumb, but maybe it gives the ghost away too much. So he's dead, but okay. I thought this is an interesting idea to confirm that Jenna Ortega was wrong about her mother and rekindle that.
This scene is interesting because she hits the tree so hard that we were talking about it. It would be way more interesting if the movie had progressed forward from this point, but she was dead as well.
Yeah, Jenna Ortega.
Because if she had hit the tree hard enough to kill her,
or if she'd been hit by a bus or anything in that fake sequence of her dying,
it can't be too gruesome.
If she
remember,
had actually died,
she could have been hit by a car because it would have flattened her and she would have been a dismembered, ghoulish ghost. Because that's how it happens. It would have had to have been something like, she died from head trauma.
This kid fell out of the treehouse and has a little bruise on his neck. We've seen in the movie when you break in your neck, all the other ghosts have their head lopsided or hanging down. It's a broken neck.
Sadly, she is not a ghost. She's alive, and this is important because the boyfriend wants to take her to Ghostin. And
the citizens call it ghosting.
Ghostin. The locals call it ghostin. And he gets her to read from this book where she makes like a verbal contract to give him her soul.
All right, so wait. He tricks her into thinking that they can go into Ghost World together to meet her father.
Right.
And I think he's trying to play off the Beetlejuice idea in the first one where if they get married...
See, I thought that's what he was going to say.
Right.
It's like, your mom's not going to like it. We're going to have to get married.
Right.
Way more simple.
I'll get to come back.
Right. But they don't do that.
But they don't even mention it. Now, I thought that would have been the trick.
Yeah.
I'm going to pretend we're going to get married so I can come back.
Yeah.
And I'll let you meet your dad.
Right.
If you'll marry me. And she says, sure. That should have been the deal.
Super simple, right, for a plot structure?
But instead, there's apparently another rule in that book. Now, this kid has had the handbook for about 30 years.
Yeah,
He's
he
been
died
dead.
in the
So he
90s.
has studied every word of it. Yeah. And there's a little incantation where someone can go in and switch spots with you. Someone who's living can switch spots. And I think, they don't touch on that in the first one at all? That
No,
someone living can swap with someone dead?
It is never mentioned in the first one. It is literally just that if we get married, I get to come back kind of thing, which is a much simpler premise.
I don't mind the swap thing because the boyfriend being evil actually was kind of cool, but it was shorter than it should have been. If you had cut Monica Bellucci at all to extend him to be a more full character, he'd be more interesting. If it was less transparent that he was going to be a ghost, which is revealed in like his third scene, and we're like, well, kinda. I was interested he ended up being evil because you don't think he doesn't look the type of kid that kills his parents.
He doesn't come across as evil
because he looks scrawny.
He looks like the kind of kid, because you almost expect him to be like, this is going to be the ghost that saves Jenna Ortega from Beetlejuice at the end.
Or he has Lydia's powers and is living, and both his parents are dead. They killed each other because they fight.
That's what I said. I was saying that the parents had killed each other.
And he lives with them.
Yes.
And is the only one who can see them except her
But when they did like the whole 90s thing, I was like, well, there goes my idea that he's also a psychic.
Right. And first off, it was like he trolled markets for 90s vinyl. Let me tell you where this kid would have to troll markets for 90s vinyl. Europe because they didn't release vinyl. I tell you, I try to get albums that are released in the 90s on vinyl. They weren't released here. It's pretty much all CD basically by 92.
And this is pretty much the extent of Jenna Ortega's arc up into the finale, which, I mean, she goes through Ghost Town. She does see her dad, which is technically true.
She is still sort of the anchor because ultimately what I wanted was Jenna Ortega to die so that Lydia has to make a deal with Beetlejuice to go into the afterworld to save her daughter.
Which they sort of do.
And that is basically what happens, except
she
doesn't die fair and square. She gets tricked by the boyfriend, which is something I guess that's easier to reverse. They probably wouldn't spit her out if she had died.
Yeah.
But
whatever.
it's still a movie. They probably, if they had helped them catch Beetlejuice, then maybe they
Oh my God, this whole time too. Willem Dafoe's in it as an actor who plays like a detective. He's a real detective.
He was an actor who played a cop and now
is now as a real cop.
And now in the underworld, he's an underworld cop. It's a funny gimmick.
He's funny, but he's also completely unnecessary in the same way Monica Bellucci's kind of unnecessary. They're just extra cast members who really never get any payoffs.
I would say
he gets like some jokes, but like in terms of like what's his character truly bring to the movie, I think the finale gets there without him. To be honest, I think it's the same.
To me, he's the parallel character to the caseworker in the first one. He's the other ghost character that we see anchored in the world. I think his death could be a lot more gruesome because apparently a grenade went off by him, and it's just flesh gone. More of your skull and brain are gone, man. Like, you should have been almost a third of a head.
Yeah, I just, like I said, he gets some good jokes, but even his character, when it builds up to his grand entrance in the finale, I know we keep teasing this finale, he does nothing. It's useless. It is completely useless that he's there at the end of the movie. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't accomplish anything. He doesn't really help with anything. He has like a throwaway line where it's like, keep the press away. And it's like, well, you're a ghost. You can't keep human press away. Maybe. I don't know.
Bring Delia back, which is...
Just to say, yeah, so...
Yeah. Part of this kind of randomly in the middle of the movie is as part of her homage to Charles dying. Delia's doing a whole bunch of grieving things, and one of them is to use asps that she was told were defanged, and she gets bit, and it ends up kind of being a funny joke. She ends up dying.
Yeah, and she goes, so I died of embarrassment.
It's funny. It ends up being a funny gimmick. It's basically a way to reunite her with Charles in the end of the movie, write her out of any sequels, and give Catherine O'Hara a sort of nice little send-away.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with it.
It's fine. It's harmless. Yeah. I mean, I guess he does get her there, but at that point, literally every dead character was showing up at the church, so... They could have found another way. It doesn't have to be Willem Dafoe. No, Willem Dafoe doesn't bring her. Beetlejuice does.
Beetlejuice brings her to the real world. Willem Dafoe brings her back.
Got it. Right. I was like, wait, Willem Dafoe doesn't do it. It's Beetlejuice. Because there's that scene where she's like, I can't believe I'm going to do this. Beetlejuice. Yeah. And then he pops up behind her. He's like, I get it. Now that you're dead, you want to hang out with me. So that was pretty funny. Michael Keaton's still very funny.
So they are in the underworld, and we find out the boyfriend reveal is that he was evil. He had actually killed the parents, and they're trying to switch spots. Right. And so now Lydia has to make a deal with Beetlejuice, and when she gets back there with Beetlejuice solves his problem really easily.
Beetlejuice solves it.
Yeah,
like
barely an inconvenience.
Super easy. Barely an inconvenience. Yeah, dude, he like ends up at the exact passport place where the guy tries to get like the soul stamp.
Right.
And like it's
all of this stupid bureaucracy stuff, but it is in keeping with the universe, but it's
very
dumb.
Silly. It is dumb. And it's kind of like silly that like Beetlejuice is there, but it's like also this feels very much within his ability to do.
Yeah.
So even though I think it's like kind of like hackery in terms of writing.
He's a trickster
within
the nether
She calls
world.
him a trickster demon, which makes sense. And I think it's fine that he does it. It's just like, it feels kind of cheap. Like it's kind of a cheap thing to do. There's no real build up to it for like, there's no like, it's literally like you see like, oh, the soul passport gets stamped and the guy's like too late and Beetlejuice like, Dostoevsky said, tough shit, buddy. And like drops him into oblivion. And I'm like,
that's into hell.
Yeah.
That guy went to hell.
And so it's like.
And we really don't know what his parents did. They may have been not very nice.
It doesn't matter. He's still a murderer. The Bible, the only book you'll ever need, is still very clear on what happens. But this is all, it gets us to...
I'm still going to read the book adaptation of Wicked.
It started as a book. Wicked started as a book.
I know that. We already talked about this.
This probably came out before that.
Oh, did it?
Maybe.
Did it?
I don't know.
Well, how can I keep all that straight?
You can't keep anything straight. So, I mean, there's a few other small. There's a few other small plot things that go on,
Beetlejuice
but
sends
it's not.
this guy to hell, and now Lydia, Jenna Ortega, and Beetlejuice all get back to the real world just in time.
The father takes.
Oh yeah,
he rescues.
they run into the
father who died in the Amazon. So he's got a bunch of little cheap fish like.
And yeah, here's a little thing where
stupid.
So this father was apparently like a protester, kind of like.
Right, that's what made her an activist.
An activist, and he went to Brazil to protest something in the rainforest, and he disappeared in the river. And they never found the body. And I'm like, oh, it's because he didn't die. And also they clue that in because Lydia could not contact him and could not see him. And I'm like, oh, well, then he's not dead. He's disappeared for some other reason. Maybe your dad's not the hero you think he is. He's actually a piece of crap.
That's what I thought.
But it turns out he actually was dead and eaten by piranhas because we can see him covered in piranhas in the
And he's got that great throwaway line, well, you guys can't see me, but I visit you all the time.
Right, and it's like, wait a minute.
No.
This family's whole thing is that they see ghosts, although, again, Jenna Ortega only sees one ghost, with 3 ghosts for some reason. Just that family's ghosts.
Yeah.
And she never sees any other ghosts, and why not?
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
If she can see those 3, she can see any of them. And
she should at least see some others.
Yeah. You know what? Like, yeah. It's just terrible.
But it's all for the convenience of the dumb movie for the reveal.
So the dad saves them, sends them back to the mortal world, and they come out in the cemetery, which is near the church, and all of a sudden...
Right next to the church.
Right next to the church, and the
and it's
fiancé
time for the
boyfriend
wedding
is like, it's time,
with the fake Otho. And it's like, I just came from the afterlife. I'm not in the mood to get married. We'll get married in a week. We'll get married in a month. I don't want to get married.
This is something we were talking about in the movie afterwards, right?
In the movie. I was like...
In the movie, yeah.
I was in the theater going, I'm not getting married right now.
So she says to her daughter, it's like, if I don't do it now, I never will. And she should have said, you don't have to marry... Rory. And she should have turned to her and said... Not Rory,
mate.
not Rory. I'm Wynonna Rider. I hit butterflies with hammers. No. So she should have turned and said, not Rory. And then we would have been like, oh, shit. Right?
But she walks right into the church all ready to marry Rory, as if it's like, wow, I really need to get this wedding that I wasn't that enthusiastic to, that Rory's not that pressury of a guy. I mean, he is a piece of crap, but he's not going to push this through.
He does like subtle manipulations to get him to do things.
Yeah. So he's more passive. Yes. Passively manipulative.
So he invites a whole bunch of influencers.
He's a gaslighter.
And then as they're talking about it, Beetlejuice shows up with Delia, and he's like, whoa, buddy, you can't marry her. I'm marrying her.
They got a contract. She signed a contract so that Beetlejuice would help get a daughter out of the afterlife.
Yep. And
which I still like that idea, not how they brought her in there.
It's similar to how she needed him at the end of the first movie.
It just gets overly. It was very complicated. It's hard to talk about this movie because there's so many pieces.
Yeah, and then like not a lot of them fit together either.
No,
it's a long road.
It's like a few scripts that got stapled together.
It does feel like
the
a
way
bunch
Monica
of different
Bellucci was stapled together in this movie.
But this part, so this leads.
Someone hid her body parts
independently.
Clothed?
Yeah. Oh.
I'm just saying.
That's fair. So when they get to the church too, Beetlejuice starts using his magic, and they set up a musical sequence to MacArthur Park, which is also the song they play in slow-mo at the beginning of the movie. And this whole sequence felt more like a James Gunn kind of thing, like a Guardians of the Galaxy, than more of a Tim Burton kind of thing. It was okay at first. At first I kind of liked it.
I liked
thought
it
was
at
silly,
first.
But it doesn't stop.
Well, but that is MacArthur Park.
I know.
But the joke of MacArthur Park, though. That's why you would choose it.
I get that, but it's
an
also
overly long song.
But at a certain point, like, you have to remember that you are like, okay, we got it.
Yeah.
Like, we as the audience got it. Like, we know what you're building toward. We get it. Next thing, please.
Yeah.
And it's just,
It doesn't have the hype of the Banana Boat song of the first, or of shake, 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 Sonora. It doesn't have any of that.
No, it's not as fun.
No, not nearly that much fun. It's kind of fun a little bit in the beginning when they first do the cake and you realize they're doing MacArthur Park, but then it goes another 3 minutes. It
just goes on. Yeah.
And Beetlejuice is like.
See, Hank didn't like it either.
His powers are amazing when he needs them to be, and then they're nothing when they're not. He can just freeze everybody.
He does, and force all the influencers into their phone.
Right.
But when it comes time for the final confrontation,
they never came back out of their phone.
So you know his thing in like the first movie, and a couple times in this one is people like beat, it's like, shoop, and they're like, For some fucking reason, at the very end of the movie, he just lets Lydia go, Beetlejuice. Pause for effect. Beetlejuice. Pause for effect. Beetlejuice. And then he explodes, and then he's like, sure, got married in Vegas. And then, but it's like, what? Do his powers just stop all of a sudden? It's like, it doesn't make any sense.
There's also a part where Willem Dafoe is hunting for him in the Netherworld, and it's like, do they know that they can say his name 3 times and make him appear?
Well,
because then they should, and he would just show up in
Willem
front of them.
Willem Dafoe says like Beetlejuice like several times in rapid succession too in that one scene, because I was counting them and I actually leaned over to him and I went, he just said it 3 times, right? And so even if we're talking about like the space time, that's true, but you only have 2 fingers, so it's very difficult.
Oh no!
So there is this part too. If we're talking, yeah, those are 2 good fingers. So there's this part too where we're talking about like what are the rules for it? Does it have to be like in the same area? Does it have to be? It's implied that anybody who says his name, it counts as one. Because when
we weren't sure if maybe it doesn't work in the Netherworld, and literally in the next scene, Delia
does it,
Beetlejuice, and then he just shows up. She doesn't.
Right, he's already there though.
Because to me, the idea is he could hear it anywhere.
Yeah, and even if like we're gonna forgive that, we'll forgive Willem Dafoe saying it because it's not like it's like maybe like an hour spread apart at most. If let's not forget that when Monica Bellucci smashes into Monica Bellucci. When she smashes,
does look great. I wish she was in more and could do something.
I wish she were in less. When she smashes into, when she smashes into the church, she goes, Beetlejuice is mine, and there's one. Yeah. And so within the next like 5 minutes, you have to reset Beetlejuice. Why are people afraid of having a conversation about this man then? I'm serious. Like the implication is that like
because it turns out it's as easy as getting away from him as saying home, home, home.
Well, they do that in the first one too.
But then it's easy to get away from him.
Well, it's easy to escape the small town, tiny town, right?
The problem is when you get into a contract with him.
Right. When you get into a contract with him is a different thing.
Right.
And that's when, because I'm pretty sure in the first one, he doesn't even get out of the tiny town until he makes a contract. And in this one, she just says it again and he just shows up without the contract. She should have gone back in. They should have formed a contract or something. I don't remember.
I mean, he does have an outstanding contract from that time at least then.
It's just,
so maybe that
just
opens the door a little more. But like you said, it's nebulous. It's nebulous. His powers are nebulous.
And a bit nitpicky, I will admit. But those are the things I think about when I watch movies like this.
That was an individual who watched all of Beetlejuice, the animated series. I'll tell you, his powers are extremely nebulous.
Yes.
And the fact that he did not turn into a car and stuff in there.
Like, he didn't shapeshift at all in this one, did he?
Not too much. It's limited shapeshifting. That's what I'm saying. I would have expected a sequel for Beetlejuice to be cranked up. And I would say Beetlejuice himself is dialed back.
So this leads us into something that you had mentioned, because we went to Chili's for a succulent
Chili's meal. I see you know your judo well.
Rest in peace, Stefan. So you had brought up a really good point that I hadn't really considered as much, and I'll let you talk about. But like the object of his affection.
Oh yeah. So Beetlejuice is back, and he's still got the hots for Lydia Dietz, but Lydia's got a young daughter, Jenna Ortega, who Beetlejuice should immediately have
same
turned
age as Lydia, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Same age.
Even if she was somewhat too young, that's perfectly within Beetlejuice's purview because he's a pervert. Right. He's bad. He's a bad dude, and he's always going to look for the younger girl. So
easier to trick.
Right.
Because he's a trickster demon. Easier to trick, easier to
beginning of this movie, I would have done, do the Charles death. I'm fine with writing Jeffrey Jones out. Take his picture off the tombstone.
I think it works better if you kill the father first, establishing that Jenna Ortega is already, really likes her dad. And then you can prey on her lack.
All of that. All
her
of
lack of a father.
Lydia,
her void in her life.
Lydia is surrounded by death. Her husband, her father, and now her daughter.
Maybe the two of them die on a trip together.
And her daughter's too much. And since she's back in town for her father anyway, and has already been communicating with Beetlejuice because she's back in close proximity to Tiny Town, she can call on Beetlejuice, I'll do anything to get my daughter back to be alive. Well, if we get married, I can bring your daughter back to life.
See, I think the opposite.
And that's what sends them in. Because
if he preys on Jenna Ortega, it's like, well...
Well, no. Wait. Now that they get into the afterlife and she saves her, that's when Beetlejuice in the finale goes... oh, wait, there's a younger one of you?
Yeah.
Oh, well, forget it, Toots. I look back past her, all her imperfections, to her 16-year-old daughter, Jenna Ortega.
Yeah.
You know, like
the Monty Burns.
yeah. That, you know, and you know, hey, wait, real quick switch, babe. And when Jenna Ortega's in the, all right, I switched the deal a little bit. But that's what would have happened as soon as Jenna Ortega was in the picture and Beetlejuice got his eyes on her.
Oh my God.
That's the new. So
the daughter's name is what? Astrid?
Astrid, yes.
Yes. So what if the contract said to marry A. Dietz?
Ah, well, that's fine.
And then it's like, you know, the devil's hands are idle playing things in Futurama. Remember, it's your hand in marriage kind of thing. So he must marry A. Dietz, and Lydia thinks it's her, but the A stands for Astrid.
I think Beetlejuice could find a way to try to switch that contract anyhow, but just, you know, the point is Beetlejuice would lust after the younger woman. I think they chose very intentionally not to go in that direction.
Despite it being in the first
movie.
movie.
But Beetlejuice would not have that type of honor.
Right, exactly.
He is a scumbag, he's a demon, and he's always gonna be, I mean, he makes tons of necrophiliac jokes in the first one. This dude there's nothing beneath him. Right. And that's the Beetlejuice.
Joke.
That's a
the
joke.
Yeah, no, they...
but they don't play with it at all.
They don't do a lot of stuff.
Anyway, Monica Bellucci busts in. She doesn't do anything other than she just shows up. She's actually doesn't even pose a threat to him.
And killed.
And immediately gets killed.
By a dumb thing, too.
And I thought...
Lydia opens a portal to the sand
draws a door, which was always easy. A sandworm comes out, same thing that happened in the first movie, and gets Monica Bellucci and Rory
killed.
Who was not a great guy, but probably didn't deserve to die for it.
I agree.
Like, sandworm hell.
Yep.
Like, he was a douche, but like, he's the kind of guy you kick in the nuts, not... put to eternal damnation.
Just turns out he's stuck constantly with truth serum and he can never lie again. That would be a fitting punishment.
Even that's not terrible. But
but it's a fitting punishment. It's like, it's a fitting punishment for a guy who's built his life on
also
lies.
A nice guy thing, but Beetlejuice sometimes does nice guy things where he's like, I'm gonna have her tell the truth.
Yeah. Well, Beetlejuice likes it because it fits into like trickster motif and separates him from Lydia, you know, at the time, which is what his goal is.
But my whole thought was this Monica Bellucci character to me seemed like that great plot element to have in your pocket. At the end of this, whether Beetlejuice wants to marry Lydia, whether Beetlejuice wants to marry Jenna Ortega, Astrid, once Monica Bellucci sweeps in, sure, she poisoned him in real life and he chopped her into pieces, but there's a love and respect. I killed you, you killed me, and music would have played, and they would have just fallen in love again at first sight. And now I don't need to marry these living people. I can be happy forever after with her. And they just don't do it. They just kill her in a second. And it's like, well, then why did you introduce that plot element at all? Why did you do anything with Monica Bellucci other than to bring her in at the finale to be eaten by a sandworm immediately?
I think it would have been funny if she does like the whole thing and she finds Beetlejuice. Is like, you can't get married to them. We're still married. And he's like, no, till death do us part. And she's like, you don't remember our vows? And like, it never included a till death clause.
Better.
And then she like drags him back and he's like, no!
Same joke. It's the same idea though, that they need to be together.
I never said till death. Right. He's like, oh no.
Because to me, she's everything Beetlejuice would want.
Yeah, 100%.
She's ridiculously hot and cruel.
Yeah,
and fun.
And fun.
Like, and
cruel
that
and fun.
is all what Beetlejuice would have wanted.
He likes perversion of innocence as well. You could make that argument. But
I think Monica Bellucci would be totally chill with Beetlejuice doing whatever freaky stuff he wants to do on the side.
Imagine after that point, like their post-credit, or not post-credit, but the end of their stories, they're both running the bioexorcism.
I'd watch their movie together.
Yeah.
Like, I'd watch a Monica Bellucci, Michael Keaton story of
hilarious.
just those two together.
Just doing bioexorcisms.
Right.
Yeah.
But they don't do it because they're stupid and they hate money. They hate your money, idiots. And so, all right, so they get eaten by a sandworm, but Beetlejuice is still there. But then Lydia is allowed to say Beetlejuice 3 times with no trouble at all,
like
which
30
sends him right back because the argument is because someone went into the netherworld when they weren't allowed, the whole contract is null and void. It's such a dumb idea, the movie breezes over it.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, the contract's on fire, there's no contract. And
There's no contract.
And then he blows up like a balloon.
The contract is
Dafoe
like
goes
void.
home.
If somebody points out the contract, it's void. It would have been void. Like I don't know. It's
They
dumb.
recur of the baby again.
Yeah, that baby gag.
Here's one thing I do like. So in the ending, I'm pretty sure I caught this. After there's the happy moment, there's a soundtrack playing, and I'm pretty sure it's the music from the first Friday the 13th, which plays when she's in the boat and everything's happy and passive. And it's like that, like it's really pretty and beautiful. And Jenna Ortega gets married to presumably a boy who didn't murder her parents.
Doesn't seem her type. Yeah, she's got a type. That was our biggest laugh in the theater. She makes like googly eyes at this this tour guide at Dracula's castle, and he goes, "I've also murdered my parents."
I didn't even whisper to the crowd. I wanted everyone to laugh.
I died.
Everyone laughed, and a few people clapped.
Yeah.
But she ends up having a baby in this dream sequence, and it's all that happy Friday the 13th music. And then luckily it goes back to the scary music and ends up being a Beetlejuice baby, which is all a dream sequence, which ends up being a dream sequence, which ends up being not one. So the idea is Beetlejuice isn't quite gone. Is there a third? I say yeah. As long as Michael Keaton is alive and they still make dump trucks and money, there's Beetlejuice the third.
I don't know.
But without Monica Bellucci.
I feel like this will do well enough for them to have the conversation, and I feel like if they end up doing it, I as much as I think like this movie lives and dies kind of on Michael Keaton, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not sure.
And Catherine O'Hara. The problem is the next movie won't have.
She won't have it, and if Wynonna Rider's in it, she'll FaceTime or something like that. You know, it'll be very, very cheap. But I just don't think there's anything to really tell. You know, I can't think of anything.
There wasn't anything to tell here.
Exactly. So it's like it was unnecessary. There's some good moments, some good laughs. I loved.
Grown-up Lydia is interesting, but not if she hasn't grown. Like Delia did grow, and
right.
Lydia
regressed.
And the problem is that Lydia is the same person she was when she was a teenager, and
she's actually less confident.
The movie tries to explain because she's had peaks, and now this is her valley.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but I'm not seeing anything new from her. You're explaining why she hasn't. Why she's reverted. But I want to see new. Catherine O'Hara grew.
Catherine O'Hara points out to her, what happened to that teenager who used to give me hell? Go back to her. Like she actually has that line. But I don't like the few jokes that were in this were funny enough. Like I liked Beetlejuice when he does like the Richard Marx right here waiting for you. Like that was kind of funny. They have like good jokes in it, but like I said, it's not enough to sustain. And it's not that long of a movie.
Beetlejuice should be more over the top.
Yeah. And I think if you're going to do that, Michael Keaton's too old. So if you're going to go forward with the Beetlejuice franchise, I almost say, like, first of all, don't. But if you do it, it's fine to recast if you have a good script. It's all going to be based on good script.
He's too old. I think the direction wasn't entirely there. I mean,
Tim Burton.
You're telling me Michael Keaton can't get energy up between, takes
He's not going to be around forever.
On a set?
He's not gonna be around
sure,
forever.
that's what I'm saying.
So they would have to move quick. I think this is making a fair amount of money this weekend, probably.
He's not that old. Come on.
The question is if he's going to want to do it if they have a good script, right?
What else are you doing? What are you doing, Michael? What are you doing? Mom.
So I don't know. Will they make one? Maybe, probably. Nothing. They'll probably remake. I don't know if they'll do. I think they might do a remake rather than a threequel.
I think there are no actors that exist in Hollywood that could do it.
That won't. Jack Black. He's in everything.
He actually probably could, but now he's already too old.
Dude, he's done too much too. Yeah, I don't know. Well, if you're gonna
Plus,
redo,
we need Jack Black in the Daryl biopic.
Yeah, we need Jack Black in like every video game adaptation. So I don't know I think they'll look forward more towards remake. That way they can start building franchise from the remake. I think this is a good send off. They'll do like they did with Ash and Evil Dead, where like Beetlejuice will appear at the end or like.
Will you see a third?
If they make it. Yeah, probably.
Will you see it at 10:45 in the morning?
Well, I saw this one, and hey, that's not nothing. You got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I would see it sooner rather than later because I think this is one that just starts to peter out and get weirder and weirder. It's like it's one that gets less relevant, the more you get away from its release date.
Yeah.
There's nothing iconic about this movie. All the iconic imagery is stuff they lifted from the first movie. There is nothing new they created iconic. It is only callbacks and references to the previous iconic film. They don't do anything fresh.
No, I agree with you.
It's a corpse brought back to life.
A corpse bride, some would say. A corpse bride. I agree with you. It's not anything special. I'm a little disappointed, honestly. I didn't have like super
Oh,
high
I'm
hopes.
not. This is exactly what I expected.
Yeah, I didn't have high hopes, but you know, there was the beginning of the
Jenna
movie.
Ortega looked great.
The beginning of the movie gave me a little bit of hope
Wynonna Rider
because
looked great.
it doesn't start.
Catherine O'Hara looked great.
It doesn't start terrible. You know what I mean? It doesn't start terrible. It's not really until they get to like the Charles's like house funeral thing.
I don't know that
that's
it ever
when
gets to terrible.
I
but
stopped laughing for a huge section of that movie.
That's because I think the boyfriend stuff's really actually heavy.
Yeah.
And to me, it would have landed more if the plot was just a little simpler. If you take
Yeah.
Monica Bellucci's complexity out of
Take
it,
her out. Take Willem Dafoe out.
then you've got an estranged daughter who believes her mother's a liar, who
Right.
finds out her mother's not a liar through her first romantic experience, who then finds out that the dead are not all they crack up to be, and her mother's powers can now save her. There's your movie. You don't need any Monica Bellucci.
don't need the rest.
I guess you could use Monica Bellucci, like I said, as an anchor to get Beetlejuice
Beetlejuice
out
out
of
of
there.
the movie.
But you didn't do any of these things that I said that make fucking sense.
No, it's just not well written.
You're stupid.
I knew it wasn't gonna be well written because did you see the writers? Alfred Go and Miles Miller. I was like, those guys are hack writers, and I just knew we were.
Was
in
there
trouble.
more than one
Seth
writer?
Graham, Seth-
Was there more than one writer?
Yeah, I think there were three.
Then it's trash.
Alfred Go, Miles, but they're a writing team and they do trash. And then
Teams
Seth
are
Graham
trash.
said-
If you need
yeah.
a team, you're trash. There, I said
They're
it.
just not they're not particularly good.
Teams suck. Teams are for losers.
Well, anyways, my drink is empty, so I'm gonna wait. What if does it work if I go Miller High Life, Miller High Life, Miller High Life? It does not.
Oh.
No, we'll see you next time I drink.
Home, home, home.